Hi, everybody.
Hello! We didn't die last night.
We didn't die last night. Many nights ago.
Yeah, so we're actually filming these after the fact. We got, just kind of exhausted from the long drives at night and stuff, so we're filming these a lot of these after the fact.
But we still wanted to keep up because we still had questions of the day. We still had experiences we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But we've been back in Seattle now for a week to kind of give perspective.
Yeah.
And what would happen is we would go through these parks and we would think, oh, we'll be in the park for like 6-7 hours, and then we'd be in the park for like 12, 13, 14.
The entire day. And then we had long drives after that to get to our next destination to hit the next park.
Yeah.
So I think we just did, in theory, Antelope Canyon.
Yes.
So we're now on to Zion.
We're on to Zion, which we stayed...
We stayed in Kanab the night before.
Kanab,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
Because
nice little town.
Emily recommended, thank you, Emily, that we approach from the western side, and that was amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely the right choice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, right as we were waking up, you could, luckily in Kanab, it wasn't really raining yet, but
No.
as we drove to Zion, it got worse and worse and worse. The clouds rolled in, it just got darker and darker and darker, and then the skies just let loose. It was,
and that was about
horrid.
3 or 4 miles before we entered the actual park.
And anyone we had talked to, Emily especially, talked about how grand an entrance you make to the park.
Yeah.
And so we're both sitting there thinking, I'll be completely honest, I'm really frustrated. I'm sure you were as well, but we were trying to keep our spirits up. We were like, it'll be fine. We'll just go hiking in the rain. It'll be fine. But I was kind of disappointed. At that point.
We even knew.
Oh, no.
You could tell by just looking at the side of the road that they were already a lot of water.
The sides of the roads were filling up with water. You could see it was spilling from places that just couldn't handle it. So you could tell there were flash flood warnings. And then right before we hit the park, just before we hit the park, I think your phone went off first with a flash flood warning.
Yeah.
And then mine went off immediately afterwards, and it just said flash floods in your area until 2 o'clock Pacific. It was weird that they used Pacific time, but
Yeah.
So we knew that certain things we wanted to do, such as the Narrows, it was not likely. But fingers crossed, we got to the entrance of the park.
Mm-hmm. We finally bought our national park pass.
Yeah. Support your national parks.
It was awesome.
Link to supporting your national parks.
Sure. Why not?
Below. I've said it now. We're committed.
That'll be easy. And it was really great because we just stopped and we asked the lady at the front desk, is like, hey, we really want to do the Narrows, which are these slot canyons, kind of like we had seen in Arches,
Very cool.
except for this time you're able to hike through them, and the trail is actually the river, and you walk on offshoots of the branch of the Virgin River, and we were really excited about that.
Yeah, that was the one that was recommended by pretty much everyone we talked to.
Everyone.
I have several friends who were photographers who had posted pictures from the slot canyons, and so I was really excited to do that. And as soon as we got there and they said it was closed, I was like, well, that's it. The one thing that I really wanted to do aside from Antelope Canyon, not that everything else wasn't absolutely amazing, but I think we kind of had our heart set on that, and it wasn't going to happen.
We really wanted to do the Narrows, and so we even asked the lady. We had a conversation immediately after that, well, are we going to do anything here? Do we just we have our parks pass?
What's open?
We'll drive through because we hear the drive is majestic, and then we'll hit the visitor center, ask them if there's any point, and then we'll drive on. She
did say right as we were entering, she said we would get a unique experience because it's a desert park,
mm-hmm.
and they obviously don't get a lot of water. And she said you'll see waterfalls that people do not get to see regularly. Yeah. So we did actually, as we were driving in, we got to see waterfalls coming off of cliff sides, and it was cool to see how much. When you look at stone and you see how it's shaped, you see these awesome little canyons, and you see these little, but you never see the water that shaped them. And so it was really cool to see a lot of those little canyons or little pathways. You got to see the water flowing through them, and you go, that's why it's carved out.
Well, especially after Antelope Canyon, which we had just done the day before, we were like, wow, they are not kidding about flash floods. When they say that the water comes through fast, the water comes through fast.
It comes through really fast. And basically any large body of water, there were a couple of rivers we saw, were incredibly murky. You could tell that it was moving a lot of earth. It was moving very fast. And so the water was very, very just full of soot and other
They said the Virgin River actually clears like 100 tons of sediment every single year. When we stopped and watched the little informational video, that the Virgin River alone clears 100 tons of sediment every year.
And that's at normal volumes. Like, I can imagine how much it's doing just in the days that it's doing flash floods. Have to account for a lot of that. So we as we entered the park, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, the only thing I could think to describe the sights we got to see, and at this point I was still disappointed. And then we punched through this. You go through this long tunnel, and it opens up. And what we got to see, which is not a very common sight, was, I don't know, like, I can think of like Jurassic Park, or like King Kong or Kong Island.
You said this looks like King Kong.
Yeah, it looks like King Kong. So basically, you see these giant mountains, and then they disappear into the clouds. And it was just, I mean, you could tell that these mountains were massive, and yet you couldn't see the top. So it was actually, and at that moment, I realized that any disappointment I may have felt was gone. I mean, just the views were incredible. Even though you felt like there was this low cloud ceiling, it was amazing.
Yeah, and we had decided at that point, because we stopped to take, I forget what it's called, checkerboard mesa?
No idea.
Anyway, it's one of the big famous checkered pattern chessboard, something like that. I'll look it up. But we had stopped to take in pictures, and you always hear about people talking about the desert right after the rain and how like it smells sweet and vibrant.
Oh, yeah.
But there was nothing like this smell that I've ever smelled.
Yeah.
It was incredibly floral, but there was these like really piney, the juniper berries. I ate a juniper berry.
It was really bad. I don't think we hit that 2-year ripe mark.
Nope.
That's what, because it basically was. So I don't know if I mentioned, or was it you that had the? Anyway, I don't think we mentioned the fact that they were actually modified cones.
Yes.
So it's not really a berry; it's a modified cone, and so if you hit it at the wrong time, it's literally just like it's condensed bark.
It's like a eaten bark.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and then I immediately spit it out, and it just looked like a crumbled, like I'd been chewing on a pine cone.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
So
but it smells like the floral smells were incredibly sweet.
Yeah.
Very piney smells, and then there's, I don't know, it's
which is weird though, because it has a relatively, I won't say limited, but the plant life around you, you wouldn't expect a floral scent from that. It doesn't look like it would give off this floral scent, but it was really sweet, and I mean, just an incredible experience. I mean, just visually, and then you have that smell as the park emits this scent.
Well, and the colors, and we would see all these like really small waterfalls, and I don't think those waterfalls are around.
No, you can tell the smaller ones. Like, there's no water source for them normally. So,
and there's no like congregation of pool, or there's no like in other places you could see like, oh, this is a ferny area. Like this is where
clearly has a source of water.
Right.
For all the not the animals, but the plants to live. Yeah, no, there were definitely some places that you could tell we were seeing water that you normally don't.
And it was really cool. And we had made the wise decision right after pulling into the park to do a time-lapse video capture of our drive.
Link to the time-lapse in the description below.
Check it out below.
It's pretty cool.
It's really fun. It's like 2.5 minutes. It's pretty fast.
If you get motion sickness, just don't look at it too close.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Anyway, so what do we end up doing in Zion? We stopped at the visitor center. We immediately were very happy that we were there. And on that drive, on the time-lapse drive, we decided immediately, like, we're doing a hike. Like, whatever it is, it's so majestic.
We're not just going to drive through this and be like, okay, well, we did Zion, but it was rainy, so we didn't really do Zion.
Yeah.
So we were committed. We ended up doing the 3 pools. What did they call those?
Yeah, but we only did, like, lower and emerald pools.
We're still not sure if we did middle or not.
I don't think we did middle.
There's a middle. Anyway, there was a landslide that had taken out one of the paths, so we couldn't take that hike, and I think that was the middle pool.
The middle pool.
Yeah.
But we definitely the lower and upper.
Yeah. By the way, if you take your kids hiking, follow the rules.
Don't let them swim in the pools.
There are signs all around it that say no swimming, and there were, of course, obnoxious. There was one obnoxious family that seemed to follow us wherever we went, and the kids were swimming and climbing on things and doing all sorts of stuff that they were clearly not supposed to do, deciding what their own trails were. Very infuriating, but also just dangerous. Yes, there were people around. Ultimately, if something had happened, someone would have jumped in and saved them. I mean, ourselves included. We would have done whatever was necessary.
We had the conversation about if those parents don't immediately get in the water, we're going in.
We're going in, but at the same time, it's just frustrating. Not to mention, these are supposed to be untouched landscapes, and that's the whole point. Is that it's not supposed to be affected by man,
Right.
and that's the beauty of it. And then all of a sudden you see these romping kids going around, and they're picking up rocks and throwing them in the water, just all sorts of
Other
stuff.
kids like picking up like big walking sticks and just like carrying them out of the park, and it's like,
Yeah.
please leave it where you got it. And even
Yeah.
the introductory video said like that we learned this in Arches. Actually, like sometimes those moss layers take hundreds of years to grow.
Yeah, one footprint. One footprint, or you removing that stick. I mean, it's just a lot of times people don't understand what their effect is.
Right.
And ultimately, we want these parks to be around for thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
years for everyone to enjoy. God willing that humanity is around that long.
Right.
But anyway,
So we did the emerald pools. Those
the
are really
emerald pools,
cool.
Those were really cool. It was cool to see how much water was flowing through.
Uh-huh.
Really, really cool. Then, so when we went to the visitors, I have to say this. Sorry
Yeah.
to go back, but when we went to the visitor center, we asked, okay, well, we can't do the slot canyons. What can we do?
Yeah.
They're like, well, here are a couple of good suggestions. Do the emerald pools. They're relatively easy, but really rewarding. They'll be relatively crowded.
Mhm.
And then he suggested this thing called Angel's Landing. And he said, you should do Angel's Landing. Incredible view. It's Angel's Landing, right?
Angel's
Isn't that
Landing, yeah.
So you should do it. It's great. But just stop at the chains. And we were like, well, he was like, just because of the weather, maybe just stop at the chains.
And we're like, how are we going to know where the chains are? Like,
he's like, you'll know where the chains are. Just stop at the
Okay.
chains. So that's what we were kind of warned with. And we were like, okay, no problem. So we did the Emerald Pools, incredible views.
yeah.
We started to make the hike towards Angel's Landing. And we're looking around and we're trying to find, I wonder which one is Angel's Landing. And as soon as you can see it, you know which one it is.
But even then, you're like, I can't believe that is actually Angel's Landing. Like, we're heading towards that.
Right.
Like, that's what we're heading towards.
How long would you say the hike was up to
It was
the chains?
It was 2 miles to the chains.
Okay, it was
because
only 2
to
miles.
Scouts Landing, which is right in front of Angel's Landing, to Scouts Landing, it's 2 miles,
Right.
and that was a pretty intense hike. You go
It
up
was.
about a mile and a quarter,
Yeah.
and then you take this turn and you're walking through a canyon. Like, and you're looking up and you're like 500 feet above you.
It becomes very much a V, and it just starts to close in, and you're like, are we going to turn out of this at some point? And you do immediately turn up and go up some crazy switchbacks. But it's absolutely beautiful. So we make this hike, and the sun's starting to. I mean, the sun's not going down.
No.
If you were to respect sunset,
Right.
it's not sunset yet, but the clouds are a little bit thick.
It's like
so,
6:45ish.
yeah,
at this
6:45, and we hit the chains.
point. The chains.
And it's hard to describe what the chains are, with the exception of, and this is the best that I can do. They basically drill hooks into the mountainside, and then put chains from anchor point to anchor point. And then the rest of your footing is up to you. You hold on to these chains, and you are walking on the edge of the mountain. And there are points where we kind of, I can't remember how we described it. We basically said, no chain, and I'd be dead. Like, I wonder, yeah, see if that does it justice.
This doesn't
It's a
even-
terrible picture of me.
It's
What do you- ugh.
This kind of gives you, but what you don't see is on this side, it's like a drop off of like
I mean,
several hundred feet.
Yeah, it's insane. And there were points where, no joke, the only way you can climb or move forward is by leaning back slightly as you're holding onto these chains. And if you didn't have the chain, you would fall off and die. There was a sign right before we jumped onto the chains, which we did do the first section of. And it was really nerve-wracking.
It wasn't even a whole like tenth of a mile. I'm sure.
No, it was not far at all. But there was a sign right before you get on the chains that lists this. There are 6 people that had died,
Yep.
I think, since 2004, doing this climb. And I mean, they're not kidding when they say, "Look, this is it's practically a climb at your own risk." Even though they took the time to do the chains,
Mhm.
it's like, hey, make your own judgment. So we did the first portion,
Yeah.
and I'll say I don't regret doing that at all.
No.
Love it. I mean, we got some amazing views once we got up there.
Yes.
I will remember that forever. But we did make the determination that once we got to a slightly flat point and we could see what was before us, and it was, I think the entirety of the change is half a mile, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it didn't look like we had even accomplished, it felt like a quarter of that, maybe.
Not even. I mean,
Not
that's
even
why
that.
I was like, we didn't even go a tenth of a mile.
Yeah.
We maybe went like 300 feet. Like we
It
went
was, yeah.
not very far.
So we could see what was ahead of us, and I think we ultimately ended up making the right call
Yes.
not to continue. I mean, the sun was starting to come down, light was starting to become an issue, and what we knew was we would get up to the top, and at our pace, because we don't want to die, we knew that we'd get up there, and by the time we were coming back down, it would be dark. And it very clearly says, please do not try this hike at
night.
dark.
Yeah.
Because you can't see. Now, that might have been a good thing only because I couldn't see how far I had to fall. Because that's obviously the most terrifying part for me is like, you see the edge of the mountain and all the way down, and you see this little dot in the distance driving. You're like, oh, that's a 2-section bus, and it's this barely visible dot. Insane.
And the colors are amazing.
The colors are amazing.
John Muir is one of the explorers, influential people in the West who stopped at Zion, and he actually did paintings of the different patriarchs, which is one of the mountain series of the castle. I think is one of them. Anyway, he did these paintings of the vibrant colors, because you have these yellows against these reds against these the trees up against the river are so green,
and then the scale on top of that.
And then the scale.
Yeah. And
so he took them to one of the world's fairs, and people didn't believe that was an actual landscape. They thought it was a fantasy that he had created. Yep. And it even that painting, I'm sure, doesn't capture the grandeur.
It doesn't. And we took tons of photos. Being a photographer, I went trigger happy. I was sitting there going, oh God, I think this card is full. Okay, next card. And then I went, wait, did I clear this card from yesterday? I mean, John got to witness me at my worst when I was like, okay, I think I can get a couple more shots. So I went insanely trigger happy. And I barely scanned the pictures, and I don't think I have a single one that captures the scale.
Right.
That's the biggest thing for me, is that you just don't understand that when you're looking over the edge, that tiny wiggly line down there is a road. And,
yeah.
I mean, you just
or this massive river.
Right.
And it's just it's crazy. But we didn't even get into a fifth of Zion National Park. We did 2 trails. Yeah. It took us the entire day. I don't regret it at all.
Not at all.
We were coming down just at 9:05. We caught one of the last buses out of the park. And there was so much more we could do in Zion, and
I think
we're definitely heading back to Zion.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, Angel's Landing is one of those. It's going to happen. I think next time
we got to do it.
Joking about the fact that I'm going to come with a 2-point harness and just latch on, move a little bit, latch on, then remove one, latch on. I mean, it is scary. I'm not going to lie. It had my heart pumping. But
and we made the right.
I want to accomplish it.
We made the right decision. My shoes had no traction on the front of either.
And we had tracked through mud, and the mud had caked into my traction. And so I had very little traction as well. It was just not the best situation. We didn't have the right gear, and ultimately that's the first thing you check off the list, is do you have the right gear?
No.
Second is, do you want to do it? I mean, obviously we wanted to, but we didn't have the right gear.
And our skill level.
Yeah, and our skill level. Doing it at night would have been a really
And we made a right decision. And we had a whole 2-mile hike to go back.
Yes. We were racing light. We got back to the bus. I think it was the second to last bus, like you said. And so anyway.
It was awesome, though, because on the way back, we got to see all this wildlife come out of... At Arches, their introduction video said there's really 2 ecosystems in the desert. There's one during the day and one at night.
Yeah.
And we got to see it come alive. We saw a mule deer.
Yeah.
In front of us, and then
joke, it jutted off from the trail onto the trail. And was like, oh God, people, wing, and jumped right back on. It was pretty crazy.
But then he stood 15 feet from us and just looked at us.
He was like, oh, what's going on? I hope he wasn't, not domesticated, but I hope he wasn't tamed in any way.
No.
I mean, that's another thing is, don't feed the animals. Don't interact with them if you can. They should stay wild. And that's their natural state. They should fear us, because we should be seen as an enemy, or not an enemy, but a predator. A threat, yeah.
We saw lots of frogs.
Yeah.
Lots of chipmunks.
In varying scale. I mean, the crazy thing was, we were having to, at some points, watch where we were stepping because they were so small. They looked like a tiny rock, and then all of a sudden that rock goes boink. And you're like, well, I almost stepped on you. So
it was cool.
But yeah, the whole park came to life. Obviously, at night, things can come out. It's not as hot.
It was amazing.
It was pretty cool.
Check out Zion.
I think...
Yeah, check out Zion.
If I had to vote, I think that would be my number one.
But don't say that, because people will stop watching.
No,
all 5 people will stop watching.
That's right, all 5 of you. Please, no. Yeah, I won't give my vote yet, then.
We already know your vote. I'm not going to reveal what my vote is.
That's true. Not till the
And
end.
it's different than yours.
That's right. Okay, good. I like
That's
that.
Cool. Anyway, we had questions of the day. Actually, a lot of them are related to the flora and the fauna of the park.
Yep.
Because we were just really curious. I hope. Okay, cool. It's still recording. My screen went on screensaver, which means we're talking too much.
Oh, no.
Okay, quick. Let's do these
All right.
questions fast.
Questions of the day.
Okay, so questions of the day. Let's just do them. I'll start with this one, then you give yours, and then I'll give mine. Does
Okay.
that work? Okay. So we saw mimosa trees. We saw one actually in Arches, which is very desertous.
Yeah.
And then we saw another one in Zion, and I was like, you know what? I think mimosas are one of the oldest trees in existence. I think they're a prehistoric tree. I'm really curious about them.
Yeah.
Because we have them here in Seattle. We have them in Georgia. They cover a lot of ground. And I was like, there's got to be a reason. Unfortunately, long story short, I never found the answer to how old mimosa trees have been around.
Okay.
However, they're not indigenous to North America. They are technically an invasive species. So the fact that they're in these national parks is potentially a problem.
Yeah,
it's a threat. So their scientific name is, Albizia ulibrizian. That I sound
totally
Russian.
Right. No, that's 100%.
Great. I'll put that in the comment below too.
Read it for yourself.
It's technically a part of the pea family. It's a legume.
It's a legume.
So it could be like a peanut's a legume. A
Yeah.
mimosa tree is a legume.
Is it legume or legume?
Technically, it's a legume, I think.
I think it is.
It's a liquid U.
That's right.
Not native in North America. They were introduced in 1745 because they're ornamental. They're very pretty. They're also known as the silk tree. They're originally from Asia. They're very poisonous. So do not eat the legumes. Don't eat the peas if you see them falling off. But they are technically an invasive species, because they are hardy trees. They can grow pretty much anywhere.
I didn't ever feel like we saw like a ton of them like taking over an area. It was usually like one and then a little ways down the road. So at least it doesn't look like maybe the rangers.
And that's why their leaves kind of look like ferns, which are cool. And they're also called the night tree because at night their little fern leaves will fold up.
Oh, okay.
But then they have these puff balls of flowers, and that's why they get the silk thing. Is because the seeds will travel by air.
Oh, okay.
And that's why they can cover massive distance. That's why they were all the way in the southeast Georgia,
right.
all the way in, but they're a problem. They're invasive. They look really pretty, but they leave huge messes, so don't.
That's too bad.
Don't.
Yeah.
But I don't know how old they are, sorry.
They're really old.
They're really old.
In fact, I'd venture to say they're the oldest tree ever, I think.
If you know, one of our 5 listeners.
Yeah, let us know if you know.
Leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my
Other
question was, and I don't remember how we came across this because we never saw a woodpecker.
No, but we saw a lot of termite holes.
Termite holes, and I was like, I don't think those are woodpecker holes.
I was like, look, woodpecker holes.
Woodpeckers! And I was like, I'm pretty sure they're termites. But then we started talking about woodpeckers, and we're like, man, that's gonna be crazy, smashing your face into the tree like that. And then the question basically was, I mean, what allows a woodpecker to do that
without mental injury,
destroying themselves, without destroying themselves. So I couldn't memorize all of this, so I'm going to be reading off of some notes. But there are 4 systems in place that kind of allow the woodpecker to do what the woodpecker does.
Oh,
so its brain, the spongy bone structure around the skull, the beak itself, and then it says skull because it's the shape more than just what it's made of.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I found this really fascinating. So a woodpecker drums at a tree as fast as 22 beats a second. That's really fast. Like you can hear it going brrrr, like you can hear it when you hear it. It sounds fast, but 22 beats a second.
22 beats a second?
That's a really fast. I can't do that.
Do it again.
You're good? So actually that's another random fact is they keep their beak perpendicular to the tree. So their head is doing this 22 times a second.
Wow.
So it's not just like a weird wailing.
It's like
it's perfectly straight. Yeah, 22 times a second. So
this is a cool website. I'm eavesdropping. We agreed not to look at each other's facts.
We try not to look at each other's facts so that it's learning amongst us as well.
But this is a cool website. It will be. He's already sent me the link. It'll be in the
So
description.
there's very, very little room between the brain and the skull itself.
Okay.
So that there is very little movement.
Okay.
So the human brain has a mucous membrane around it,
Yeah.
and so when we have movement like that repetitively, that's the whole concept behind a concussion. Is there's
Concussion.
enough room for
Right.
your brain to move that shock
Right.
causes internal issues. The woodpecker's brain is touching its skull. There's so
Wow.
little room, so that's another thing
Yeah.
that helps with that. And then the spongy. So it says the bone's porous structure stops low frequency vibrations from reaching the bird's brain. So not only is it not having the impact of hitting its own skull from inside because
Right.
there's very little room,
Right.
the porous structure of the bone actually reduces some of the vibration, the shock from the beak
Huh.
hitting it. So those are the most interesting ones. There were two other. I'll let you guys look that up if you'd like.
Yeah.
But those are the two that I felt directly correlated with the question.
Yeah.
But I'm still
That's
astonished.
interesting.
22 times a second.
That's
A
interesting.
lot. So if you see bigger holes,
Yes.
usually about the size of a dime to a quarter, those are more than likely the woodpeckers. So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then our last question of the day. Oh,
hey
somebody just
Taylor, shout out! You just texted us while we're recording the video.
texted. He's not going to watch this.
He's not watching it. That's right.
So we saw these really cool, as we were driving, we saw these really cool flowers that looked like lilies in Mount Zion.
Yeah.
Because we pulled over at several abysses. You'll notice in the time-lapse video.
Boom.
But we pulled off at several abysses, and there were these big flowers. And I was like, are those lilies?
They look very lily-like.
they look very
I would have
lily-like.
put money on Lily.
They are called the Sacred Datura.
Okay.
Their scientific name is Datura wrightii. WRGHTII.
Oh, okay, right.
Right, like named after a person.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
WRIGHT, like the Wright brothers.
Gotcha.
They are actually one of the largest flowers found in the continental U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Because
Wow.
what they do, we saw them kind of at the end of but if you think about it, their bloom was about
They
as
were
big as
substantial.
our hands.
Yeah.
So they get very large. They're these like white lilies. They're also nocturnal flowers.
Are they lilies?
They're not lilies. You're
Okay,
right.
okay.
I keep saying lilies. They're not lilies. They're nocturnal flowers. I don't know what family they belong to. Sorry.
Nocturnus floweriosa.
That's the one.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're nocturnal flowers, so that means right after sunset, their buds will start to open, and
Oh, wow.
their buds form in this kind of spiral formation, and
Yeah.
then they expand, and then they're usually dead by noon. So
I was going to say, we were seeing it right about that time, right?
right, and on
Ooh.
overcast days they'll live longer, but
Gotcha.
they bloom overnight because of that nighttime. Those nighttime animals,
Wow.
they want those nighttime animals to come because
Lick
they're
the pollen.
big to like lick the pollen out of them, or the bees so
Yeah.
the small frogs
Yeah.
could potentially be some of their pollinators.
Wow.
They are actually poisonous though if consumed by
Why
humans.
is everything poisonous?
Yeah, I don't
Come
know.
on.
But
How did we survive?
Native Americans use them in certain doses as an anesthetic if they needed to do something procedural, or
That's
as
cool.
a hallucinogen.
Hey.
Yeah.
So, as with most things, a little bit poisonous, but maybe fun.
Really fun.
Yeah.
This is a 30-minute video.
Yeah. 28 minutes and 10 seconds.
Cool. We should. Okay, what was your favorite fact of the day?
I'm going to be honest. I think the woodpecker is pretty badass. Oh, sorry to
That's
all our
fine.
listeners.
You can say badass. It's
Okay.
okay.
I think that the woodpecker is pretty amazing, and it's cool facts that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm interested to look at those flowers a little bit closer. They look like lilies to me, so it's interesting that so many flowers
Yeah.
can have similar shapes, totally not the same family.
And they're nocturnal. It's cool. They're cool flowers.
You don't hear about nocturnal plants very often.
That was going to be my favorite, but the woodpecker's really fascinating.
Woodpecker's pretty
The
cool.
low density in the beak is
Yeah.
like how poor. Like it
Yeah.
boggled my
It's
mind.
pretty crazy. 22 times a second. So go home and practice yourselves. 22.
22.
I can't do it.
And then post a link to that.
That's right. Let us know so we can watch you try.
Then
can't do it.
question:
Yeah.
what is your Instagram handle? Because he's been releasing some photos within the last week that are astonishing, and there's hundreds more.
Yeah. Hopefully, plenty more to come. So I think it's just Galen Wicks. It's that easy.
Okay,
Yeah.
you should send me the link. I'll look up the link and
G-A-L-E-N.
I'll post it below.
WICK.
His photography is also just really good in general, so
Oh, thanks.
check it out.
So it's yours.
Of Sonic.
Well, you know,
Anyway,
check out John's Instagram
Cool.
as well.
we'll talk to you later.
Bye. Thanks for watching.